And back to our conversation about ULEZ, because almost 6 months ago, London's ultra-low emission zone expanded to our borders here in Kent. So just to recap, anyone who drives then into the capital from here now has to pay £12.50 if their vehicle isn't considered green enough. But now, half a year on, transport bosses say it has been effective actually at taking older, polluting vehicles off our roads. New figures show that in the first 3 months, around 45,000 fines were issued to non-compliant vehicles in Kent, Surrey and Sussex, and 17,000 of those were actually in Kent. So our reporter Piers Hopkirk has been assessing the impact of ULEZ in Kent so far.
Who in Medway, maybe 20 miles from the border of London's ultra-low emission zone? But for 6 months, the vehicle charge has put a steady squeeze on Abby Austin's cleaning business. With 70% of her customers inside the ULEZ zone, she has to soak up the daily charge of £12.50.
You've got to take on extra jobs because obviously you've got to fill, it all adds up. So if at the end of the month you're down £300, that's a big chunk of money, especially in today's climate. Making that money, it's not easy, trying to get the jobs in to cover it.
Abby's van's just 6 months too old to qualify for an exemption. A new one would set her back in the region of £20,000. On the ULEZ border at Dartford Rugby Club, the charge means some players rely on car shares to get to the club, and that, they say, leads to exclusion. Luke Stickings is the Director of Club Development.
I think it's just the way in which it impacts the people that it's designed to protect. So, parents not being able to afford to upgrade their car to lower emission vehicles means that a club like ours, right on the border of ULEZ, there's actually restricting their access to those areas.
I'm on the dividing line where the £12.50 ULEZ charge kicks in. For many businesses on the border, this is one anniversary they won't be celebrating. Ogasan Kaigasus has run this barbershop in Crayford for 16 years. But since ULEZ was expanded, he says it's trimmed more than 20% off his takings, with some customers no longer willing to cross into the charging zone.
Just to get rid of ULEZ, because our local businesses, especially small businesses, are hugely impacted on this case.
The ULEZ charge continues to prompt protest. Transport for London's Commissioner told the London Assembly it was achieving its aims.
This was a huge undertaking, and the initial data shows that the scheme has been highly effective at reducing the proportion and number of older, more polluting vehicles on London's roads.
Environmental campaigners say the goal of cleaner air is one that has to be pursued. This is Claire MacDonald from the campaign group Mums for Lungs.
I think it's really difficult to see air quality, and that's part of the problem. But what we do know is that 80,000 of London's most polluting cars have been taken off the street, and that will inevitably have a positive impact.
6 months on, the ULEZ expansion and its charging system remains controversial. Its impact felt far beyond the capital. Piers Hopkirk, BBC Radio Kent.
So what do you make of the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone coming to Kent then? It's been 6 months. A lot of people were very angry at the time, but a lot of people also contacted us to say, actually, we think it's a good idea to reduce pollution, and different points of view actually coming through on WhatsApp this morning as well. Now, this is interesting from Vince in Mark Cross, because I was asking, has it changed your behaviour? And he says, yeah, we'll not take on any more work outside the ULEZ zone. All our vans do not comply. And I'm not buying new vans when there's nothing wrong with them. And Ed made the point, he got in touch earlier to say he'd seen some non-compliant vehicles that were in Greater London actually being used outside in Kent instead. So I wonder what that means for our pollution levels. How about you? How do you feel about it? Have you changed your habits? Are you using public transport more? Is there even sufficient public transport in your part of Kent to get you where you need to go? Meanwhile, this from the Mayor of London. The decision to expand the ULEZ ultra-low emission zone London-wide was not an easy one, but necessary to tackle toxic air pollution. For those living outside the capital, the Mayor continues to call on the government to further support the switch to cleaner vehicles through funding a targeted national scrappage scheme or providing additional funding to the home counties. So they have a scrappage scheme, don't they, in London that you can apply for. That is a London thing. So it doesn't apply to us in Kent at the moment. And he was asking the government to do that for us, as it were. It does become quite political, doesn't it, when you're talking about ULEZ in this sense.